Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of our Bold Business Breakdown. I'm your host, Sebastian Sanchez.
And I'm also your host, Rebecca Nordquist.
So happy almost Halloween. To all of our viewers, today we're doing a playback episode of when we interviewed Jordan Olivas after he spoke here with us at NMSU.
He did a really great job, and it was hard to not go overtime on the speaker series and also on the podcast just because there was so much good information and so much to learn from him. Yeah.
Students after the event had to ask him questions. He had so much questions they wanted to ask him, and he was just answering them all. So
he really took his time with everybody, and we really appreciated that. And just to get a little bit more information on him, he is an award-winning C-suite executive with years of experience in finance, sales, marketing, and specializing in e-commerce and financial technologies.
Yes, he is also the co-founder, was the CEO, and is now the executive chairman of KissPay, a financial technology company that offers a range of financial products, services, and solutions that help your business stay ahead of the curve.
It's going to be a great episode, and we're super excited, but we'll let you guys get more information on him throughout the episode, and we hope you take this time to be bold and shape your future. So, as we all know, the holiday season is rolling around the corner here very, very soon.
Yes, that's right, Becca. And you know what that means? Spending, buying presents, eating a lot of food, and even more spending.
Yep. And, the holidays are a very beautiful time shared with family and friends.
Oh, yes.
But sometimes we can definitely find ourselves stretched a little thin during this time of year.
Absolutely, Becca. And that's why New Senda Credit Union is offering a workshop called Breezing Through the Holidays.
In other words, New Senda has your back this holiday season to help guide you and answer all your questions on all things finance.
So join New Senda Credit Union in an online webinar on Thursday, November 7th from 11:30 a.m. until 12:30 p.m.
And if you're not able to make it to that first session, the second session is on Thursday, November 16th from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m.
Yes, so we will link the New Senda Credit Union website down below for more information on the workshop and how to register.
But for now, let's jump into our episode. Okay, everyone. Our guest has now joined us, Mr. Jordan Olivas. Jordan, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. First of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Great back in my home state, having a good time. And, I love it. Got my fill on Blake's, got me some Twisters.
Nice.
I'm pretty happy right now, minus the bathroom breaks to the green chili. But, I'm doing okay though, but it's good. It's good.
Are you a red chili or a green chili person?
Growing up I was red,
okay.
Transitioned to green, and I think it just settled on Christmas.
Yeah,
that's of both worlds,
I love us smothered burritos.
It's so funny in Texas. So I live in Dallas now, and I every September-ish, right? They have like green chili. All the restaurants start bringing in green chili, and so I have them bring out breakfast burrito. And it's like, oh, can you put green chili in it? Yeah. And they're like in it. And they're like, yeah, inside of it. It's like well, normally we smell it. I was like, well, put both. Put it inside. Put it on top. Yeah. And then what I want you to do is I want you to put some French fries, onions, tomato, cheese, lettuce, and they're like, that sounds amazing. I'm like, yeah. It does sound amazing because it is amazing. And then I saw them the kitchen staff made a second one. They started eating it. I was like, yeah, you're getting the hang of it. We're getting there.
Yeah.
I think in Texas, right, they don't have any green chili. It's just red.
Yeah, it's not even that. It's like tomatillo. It's like it's so funny. When I moved to Texas, my wife and I went to a bunch of Mexican restaurants, and we were expecting New Mexico food. But Tex-Mex is just so. It's different. It's different. It's different, and we've had So it's funny, on the Facebook pages, there's a lot of New Mexico transplants in Texas. And, I posted one time, I was like, hey, where's the best place, get New Mexico food? It had 300 comments. People are like, I can't find any place. This is the closest I can find. Yeah. Somebody needs a startup idea. New Mexico food in Dallas, that would.
Yeah. New Mexico food everywhere. I mean, it's really hard to find anything that compares.
I've been all over the world, and I still think New Mexico has the best food. We may not have the best education. We may not have the best economy, but damn, our food is good. We produce great chili and great fighters. That's what we're known for, right?
Yes. Awesome. Well, we're glad you're doing great, and we're glad you're enjoying your stay here. If you could just to start us off, tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you to where you are today.
Yeah. Today I'm the executive chairman and the co-founder of a company called KissPay. We're a multinational lender, so we lend money to consumers and businesses. So we're licensed from the Securities and Exchange Commission and the local economies there. We also have a second half called KissPay Agency, which is a software development company, where we work with quite a few startups, but we primarily focus on doing e-commerce development, fintech development for companies. Some fairly, we have a multi-billion-dollar client. We've got clients that are, $10-20 million a year on Shopify, BigCommerce, things like that. And for us, we know actually what we're doing because we've built all this stuff before, and we're very affordable. So like in today's day and age, everyone wants to save a buck where they can. So that business has been booming. For me, where I started, I'm from Grants, New Mexico originally. Went to UNM. Go Lobos! Oh wait, wrong place. So I went there. I got a degree in marketing, and I was staying in Albuquerque for about a year. I was pretty happy, and decided I needed to leave state for job opportunities. Yeah, I mean, I graduated in 2012, and since bottom of the '08 recession, and applied for hundreds of jobs. Just couldn't get it.
So your main background is in marketing and sales. So what kind of inspired you to go for fintech? Was there like a problem you needed to solve, or?
Yeah, it was just kind of an accident. I worked for a fleet because I worked at an automotive shop, and so I worked for a fleet management company as an account executive. And there was a case where someone was stealing fuel, either Wex Voyager fuel card, which is like this payment card. If you have a corporate vehicle, you pay for all your fuel on it. And he was stealing fuel into his personal vehicle. I got really interested in payments. Very few people come out of college saying, I want to work in payments. I mean, especially back then, like fintech was like not really a big thing. And so I fell into it, and it was a whole world I wasn't aware about. And it just kind of kept going. And so I started working in bill payments. So we worked with utility companies like P&M, government entities. I traveled all over the country, and we did recurring bill payments and communication to customers. After that, I went to work for a software development company. We worked for like Visa, MasterCard, a bunch of payment companies, and building out private label credit card systems. We built out EMV certifications, built payment gateways, and really got a very strong understanding of payments. And from there, I got moved into Klarna, and Klarna was my first kind of like introduction to what you'd call as fintech. Before that was very hardcore payments background, which is fintech is more of a broad category. And within fintech, you have like lending and payments, and then they have multiple. You have all these different subcategories. And I found it to be really interesting because I was selling it to big retailers like Forever 21, Revolve Clothing, REI, GameStop, and like it was. I was opening the doors there and working through the deal cycle, and I'd never sold into retail ever in my life. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I was always selling to CTOs prior to this. And so now I was selling into MOs, Chief Marketing Officers and VP of e-commerce. But transitioning to e-com was incredibly easy because I understood payments on a very deep background. And I'd regularly get comments that you're like, probably one of the most knowledgeable payments people we have at Klarna, which is, was a huge compliment to me because, at the time I was like in my late 20s and coming to a brand new field and 3,000 person company at the time. Like I was like, wow, that's like really cool. And this was something kind of clicked. I was like, wow, like if you understand payments on a really deep level, it's very easy to go into a lot of these adjacent fields and really be able to decouple the core concepts of how they work and why they're important. And from there, I went and became the VP of sales at ChargeAfter, and it was before they even announced their Series A. We were like 12, 13 people. And there I built out the sales team. I closed some deals with multi-billion, like a couple multi-billion-dollar brands. It was a what they call waterfall financing. So it's like if you're a subprime customer, you get to climb from the top two lenders. You get presented what they offer that's most relevant to you. And I was there for a while, and then I decided to start my own company, which is KissPay. Yeah. So we were we launched the first buy now pay later in Pakistan. Never been to Pakistan like one time before that. It was like a few months prior, and I just kind of had this idea like, wow, there's no lending here, there's no Affirm or Klarna or Sezzle or Afterpay or any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it has the 5th largest population in the world, 240 million people almost. Like, it's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, yeah, let's start doing this. So I started cold calling merchants middle of the night. I started I'd never raised money before. I knew no investors, and I just literally started cold messaging. It's it's funny because a lot of people are like, oh, you must have known all these people. I'm like, no, I didn't know anybody. I didn't
Just picked up the phone and then dialed them.
That's all it was. And I think coming from a sales background was very helpful because I was really used to getting rejected. And when you're raising money, you get rejected a lot. And so I think that kind of that grit is, and it's funny, I talk to people that moved out of New Mexico.
Yes.
And everyone says the same thing. It's like, there's always this chip on your shoulder about being from New Mexico. Like, you always have to prove yourself a little bit harder. And I actually moved back to New Mexico for about a year during the past 10, 11 years. Okay. And I remember I would, go to conferences, like, oh, I'm from New Mexico. I'm like, oh, New Mexico has tech? What is people legitimately laugh. I'm like, what the hell, guys? Yeah. And so I think there's this, I think it's really interesting. There's a lot of very successful New Mexicans that are kind of hidden out there. Yes. He's a CEO of this, I don't know how big they are. I mean, they've got to be at least $1 billion valuation. And I got introduced to him because I was doing some stuff with University of New Mexico and their sales program. Yes. Funny enough, the professor that runs that literally emailed me right before we started this.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was, and he made this intro to this guy, and he grew up a few blocks from the first house that I bought. Oh, wow. And he went to UNM, and now he's a CEO over here. And what was funny was that I had coffee with it. So before he became the CEO of this company, Simpro is the name of the company, and before that company, worked at a company called Cart.com. And I had coffee with the CEO before, and we had all these mutual connections. He had a big kind of payments and e-com background. He worked for Adobe, I think, prior to, and I never met the guy. Oh, wow. And just it's it's such a small world. So there's all these really successful people like Mark Fidel is one of the coolest people out there. He just exited from a company called RiskSense. I think he's retired. He's doing a bunch of cool stuff, but he's just this crazy smart guy from Grants. I went to St. Teresa, which is this Catholic school in Grants. Okay. I went to church 6 days a week as a kid. It was it's but I got a great education there. Yeah. And, but there's all especially Grants, I feel there's all I think Grants has not Grants, New Mexico and whole has a brain drain problem. And it's just hard because you want to come back. I mean, I think you and I were talking last night, I want to stay here. I like it here. And it's just difficult because you don't have those opportunities here. And I was talking to, I was talking to this exec a few days ago. And he's like, where'd you grow up? He's like, I grew up in Detroit. And I was like, all right, cool. And I was so when you, graduating college, where'd you go? I went to work for one of the big three, of course, right? Everything automotive, I know where I'm going. Yeah. I was like, well, in New Mexico, we don't have that. You go to the labs, unless you're really lucky and get in for the BD side or you're an engineer. But if you're a BD marketing, you don't have anything. You're stuck unless you're a CPA or, something very, specific like that. But you're general marketing and business, there's not a lot of opportunities for you. And so you just, and I felt it was interesting when I went to Pakistan, I felt a lot of the same problems. Very smart people, very passionate, very hardworking, but their bubble was just preventing them from even knowing what else was out there. They just didn't know, right? And I think that's for me, when you get out and you realize that, you get so excited about it. And now, I have the time to be able to come back and spend time at NMSU and UNM and spend time helping early stage founders. I'm just hoping one day, hey, I exited for $1 billion. You're your $1 million for helping me so early on. I made that help. But I really enjoy that part of it. It has nothing to do with payments or fintech. It's just I talked to 2 founders yesterday. They're starting to get some traction. They're seniors here, I think. And, one of them has 6-figure annual recurring revenue, which is, I don't think you realize how impressive. I was that is a huge accomplishment. I was I'm going to open you up to my entire network. One of these deals are dotted and inked, and we'll go ahead and
work something out.
I'll make sure to help you as much as I can. And
that's awesome.
but that's I think that's kind of like my background and kind of like why I do what I do, and love payments, love fintech, love e-commerce. There's just, it's such a big industry, and I still to this day feel like I know less than 1% of what there is to know in payments, and that's a very exciting prospect for me.
Yeah, no, that's an awesome background, and thank you for sharing that and telling us your story. Going off of that, though, because there were some challenges that you kind of listed in there, but are there any key challenges that you maybe faced within your career that people, if you don't mind sharing, that people could learn from, and that you learned from and navigated on your own?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you leave college, I think there's always this expectation, I'm going to go work for a company, they're going to teach me everything I need to know. That's definitely not the case. Mm-hmm. I never received any formal sales training. Like, I might get like some company training, yeah, you might learn, try this and this, but I've never received any formal sales training. And I think being able to get up and just self-teach yourself, I mean, I fire employees that, like, I don't have time for. I'm like, I'm not going to babysit you. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're not going to do, like, I shouldn't have to follow up with you every single day and stay on top of you to get your job done.
Yes.
So just being self-motivated, I think, was a really big, I always felt in my career that I always had to scrape and claw. I feel like I never really got lucky. Mm-hmm. Like, everything I did, like I've got some friends that they're just lucky. It's like they do one thing, like, oh, I got it. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, I never win anything in the lottery. Like, I never win prizes or anything. Like, yeah. I'm the least lucky person in the world. Mm-hmm. But I just always felt like a lot of my life was a lot of grinding and clawing and just like, growing up, I mean, I didn't have a ton of friends. I wasn't the popular kid. And so, like, for me, I always felt like I had to prove myself. And now as an adult, like that, I don't know if you want to call it trauma or whatever, like whatever it is, right? That really motivated me to, because I was like, I know that I'm smart. I know that I'm hardworking. Like, I know I can do these things. And like, now it's kind of funny, like, now that you've had success, how many people come back, oh, well, as your friend, I'm like, don't come talk to me. But like, I think that's like one of the struggles, like as a founder, and when you get success, trying to bifurcate who is really your friend and like who is like really trying to help you and who's just either an employee or a partner. And like, that's a very hard distinction to make. And it's even harder to make that call because you have to protect yourself. Yes. And it's very difficult. But I've made some really great, legitimate friends in my career, and folks that have been with me at the start. And I genuinely, like, my co-founder, I'm like, he's like my brother to me. Like, he's like, just such a great individual. His whole family treats me like, like their own son. And like, it's such like, they're from another country, from halfway across the world. Yeah. And they are just would do anything for me. And I love them to death. And it's so hard to find people like that. I think like one of the harder things as well is like, I feel that when you are going into the workforce and you're trying to really be, not just like go through the motions, is kind of understanding the nuances of corporate politics, even in a small company.
Yes. Oh yeah.
You kind of, at least for me, I always thought like, well, if you have a good idea, like it should just make sense. And I was with the founder last night after the talk that we had, and for a couple hours, and well, why didn't they just do this? It makes total sense. And I'm like, because you got to talk to 20 people. If any of those 20 people just don't like you or like feel like you're competing with something else that they have going on,
they'll say no.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's probably one of the hardest things that I found in my career, was kind of getting past that. And I think as a founder, especially one that's VC backed and you're trying to do this rapid scaling, there's an immense loneliness that comes along with that. Immense loneliness. And you can talk to your spouse about it and your partner, and they're there to try and comfort you, but they really can't understand what happened. Like, you'll see a lot of like happy-go-lucky, like, founders who do super well. Like, they don't tell you about the 20 times they cried in the shower this year. Like it's and it's a very real thing. And you listen to other similar podcasts, like they'll have those like very real conversations. The amount of stress is like, how am I going to make payroll? How am I going to deal with X? How am I going to deal with Y? And I had more hair a couple of years ago, but I think it's realizing that there is a negative side, right, to being it. But if I did it all again, I would do it a little bit differently, but I'd still do it again.
Yeah. So I'm sorry.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
I'm kind of curious because when it comes to marketing and sales, always want to learn like other people's philosophy. What pushes them to kind of go for the sale. I kind of want to hear like your perspective on what's your philosophy behind sales. What do you believe in sales?
People do it for money.
People do it for money.
Yeah, I mean, like if anybody tells you otherwise, it's a straight up lie. Like and it's not that like, and it's not. It's kind of funny. Like if you find a salesman like, well, I just really enjoy the sales process. I enjoy bringing people together. It's like, that's bullshit. You do it for the commission. Like, don't lie. Yeah. And it's like, but at the end of the day, like there's a fine line, right? Like I do like it for the money. I like making commission. It's the thrill is like none other. High highs, low lows. The closest thing you can find to becoming a founder is doing sales. But what I genuinely enjoy is, and what I've learned is that you don't sell things to people that they don't need. That doesn't make value for both of you, because, and it's nothing to do with ethics. It's just good business. Like if you screw someone over, it's going to come back to bite you. And it's a small world. So you have to do the right thing. And like I've walked away from deals where it's like, there was a deal that was like, it's a pretty good sized deal for like a small sales automation platform I've had for a long time that I've just passively have grown over time. And it was a deal for like, it's like 60 licenses or something. It was huge. And they're like, we need this and this and this. I'm like, we're not really built for that. Like that's not our ICP. And I walked away from the deal. Would have been thousands of dollars every single month in my pocket. But, you know, to me, that generated 2 more leads from that prospect with better fit people. And so, and like I think that's the big difference between like a sleazy salesperson and like someone who actually takes pride in the profession, because it gets a bad rep. Funny story. I've never really experienced a sleazy sales experience. Like you always hear about it, even buying cars. Like I mean, you get a little bit, but nothing crazy, right? There's like, all right, dude, to go through your emotion, whatever. Like, but I actually went to my wife and I were gonna go camping, and I was like, well, I got this campsite and it's free. I'm like, what do you mean free? He's like, well, it's kind of weird to do like this like 90-minute meeting with them. I'm like, oh, it's a timeshare thing. I'm gonna have fun with this. And so we went, oh my gosh. And we went through the whole thing. My poor wife sat there with me. And I just like, basically just fact checked her with ChatGPT the whole time. And she's like, well, what are you looking up? I was like, look up. And I'm like, everything. I think she wanted to throw punch me at the end. I feel bad for her. But I mean, that I actually felt coming out of it, I had fun kind of messing with that. But, you know, I never felt sleazy and disgusting after coming out of a sales pitch before in my career, ever, you know, on both ends, either someone selling to me or me selling to them. I've always felt like, yeah, we ended on a fairly good note, right? Whether it comes out, you know, a good sale or not. And it was very, I don't know, eye-opening is the right word, but it made me almost resent sales in a way. That even exists. But I think that exists in every career, right? Like, you know, the developers that work 1 hour a day and say they did 8, and, you know, the construction works, you know, one guy stands around for 7 hours, and, you know, like I think every career has that. And what it made me realize that the reason I do love sales, so I can tell people this is a great career, and it's the best networking event. It's the best networking that you can ever do. It sets you up to know a lot of very, very powerful and interesting people. I just think sales is the best career. I love sales. I love payments and fintech. Like I love lending. I think it's giving me not just opportunities that most people don't get in life, but it's also, I feel, because I can sell well, it's positioned me well to be a good executive and good advisor, because I know how to decouple a sentence and understand the true meaning behind what someone is saying, and being able to figure that out, what someone's personal win is across the other side of the table, helps you create a win-win situation. And that's what true sales is. True sales is not closing a deal. True sales is creating a situation where both people at the table can move forward together faster and better. And like, that is what I love about it. And that's why I'll probably never leave. And it's funny because everyone said, Jordan, you're either going to be a politician or a salesperson. And I was like, a politician sounds a lot less sleazy than sales, so I'm going to go politician maybe. And like, you know, I love it. I think it's, I would, people always want to shy away from it. And some people try and they just like, this isn't for me. I can't handle the rejection, the pressure. But I think I thrive in those like high dopamine like environments. And I think that is, in Pakistan, I know not a lot of people know about it, but the country's lost half its over the past few years, the currency have lost half its value. The prime minister got ousted. There's been like riots. The country it's getting better, but it's in pretty rough shape. We would not have survived if, one, my team is awesome, is number one. My investors even are great. And I think a lot of it, though, from a driving perspective, is that it's very easy to give up as a founder. And I think in sales, it's very easy to give up in sales. And so when you have that like mentality of like, just gonna do it, let's get shit done. Like those are the founders that I back. So I make small investments. I don't have large funds. It's all my own money that I'm investing. But my goal is it's funny. I have a domain, Olivas.vc. Olivas Venture Capital is the company formation name, and it's really more like what are those things called? Not storyboard, like a vision board, right? That's like my vision board, right? It's like I want to eventually be a small venture capital firm that invests in like early stage startups, and like we're deeply involved in helping them and like really taking things like that is my long-term vision of where I want to be in 10 years. And that's for me, I think if I can help people with their go-to-market, a lot of people struggle with that as an early stage founders, go-to-market and sales, and if I can help them there, I think I'll drive a lot of value.
No, yeah, sales. I mean, we're both marketing students, so it's great to hear your take on sales and how powerful it is and how good of a field it is. Just to go back a little bit, I don't mean to do that, but you were talking a little bit about the grind, and that's also known as making money and having a life, and in that it can also be kind of difficult to cultivate like a healthy work-life balance and still maintain your more like your family relationships along with your work relationships, and I just want to hear your take on like how you navigate that and what works for you. And
yeah, I mean, I got married really young. I got married at 22, 23. I just graduated college and I got married, and I got very fortunate to find the best woman in the world. We've been married for over 10 years now, been dating for like it'll be 14 years. In December, like I got very, very fortunate in that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's as I say, marriage is actually pretty easy until you have kids. Then that's when it gets hard. It's really easy to get along with someone when you've had 8 hours of sleep. But it's look. I think I always tell people that are especially coming out of college. I give a lot of unsolicited advice, and I know they're probably resenting it as I'm saying it, but I'm hoping one day, like 5 years down the road, they're like, "Shit, he was right." Yeah. But it's. I think early on in your career, when I was married, my wife worked night shift, and so I got every other weekend by myself. She slept during the day, so I got a lot of time to myself. And I had hobbies and stuff, but I worked a lot. I love to work. I like working because I take passion in what I enjoy, and I think a lot of people struggle to find what that is. I'm just fortunate enough that I enjoy what I do. And people said, well, how do you advance your career like this? And it's like, because I worked like 70, 80-hour weeks for years. So instead of getting 1 year of experience in a year, I was getting 2 years of experience in a year, right?
Really fast,
yeah. And everyone talks about work-life balance. I think that's, to me, I struggled with that for a long time. I went through a rough period during being a founder, kind of balancing that with my family, because at that point I had a second kid, and I missed out on some of my kids' life because of that. And looking back, I wish I would have done that a bit differently. Like I'd still be a founder, but I would have done things differently, and I would have spent more time with my family because I missed out on a lot of important moments. And but it also gives you a lot of retrospect and realize what you have and like why it's so important. And I think after the end of that, my wife's and our relationship is like just crazy strong now, and like she understands things like that most other spouses will never understand. But I think if early on in your career, especially if you're single or if you got a very understanding wife, y'all like, oh, as long as you get to go on a trip once a month to wherever, and I'm happy, whatever. I didn't like go out to like a lot of bars or like I didn't really travel personally because I traveled for work a bunch, so I got to see all over the world for free. And like the memories that I had, like conference, I went to as many conferences as I possibly could. I pushed to go to conferences because like you literally just get to drink and have great food for free and meet other interesting people that are smart and as motivated as you, right? So like those are my memories. Like I have some great memories at these conferences. And like you after a while, you're like, oh, I have to go to another conference. But like I haven't been to one in a while, and like I want to go to Money 2020, and I've had like at least 30 or 40 people over the past week like, hey, you gonna be at Money 2020? I'm like, yeah, probably not this year. Like, you know, and but like, you know, early in my career, I went to every conference that I could, and I loved it. I think work-life balance is kind of a sham early on. If you're not like, if your goal is not to be really successful, or like I just, you know, I want to do my job, do my 40 hours, and I want to take it easy, and I want to, you know, hang out, watch The Bachelor, then that's fine, right? But for those who like really want to get out there, like you can make memories. Like there's this big like work-life balance. You got to travel and do this and this, and it's like no, you don't. Like there's other ways to make memories, like and you know, be productive at the same time. Like and what I found like over the years is always struggle with like what I really like. I had a ton of hobbies. And what I found is like, I don't actually like anything. Like I don't really have a hobby per se. Pickleball, I'm really obsessed with pickleball at the moment.
Pickleball.
It's so good. I have a paddle in my backpack. So they're like, oh yeah, I'm like ready to play all the time.
You play with Carlos later.
Oh, it's Carlos, do you play? You play pickleball? What? I was like, all right. I was like, all right, here we go. But I genuinely enjoy building things. And building things could be like, I built like a big 8x4 chicken coop for my chickens. I love doing that. And I like building, I have like 1,000 Figma, maybe not 1,000, but I have a lot of Figmas, which are like a design software, and visions that, in wireframes of ideas that I've had. And I'll just sit there like my kids will go to bed. I'm like, I've seen you come to bed. I'm like, no, I go to bed. I'm obsessed. Like I'm like designing it all out. And I just love that. And I think that's why I like helping founders early on in their career, because like you are like at the core building moments. And if I can give you direction or anything that can help accelerate your journey, it's really helpful. And but in the beginning, I used to do it for everybody, everyone that I would talk to. And it would use up a lot of my time, but I would like it. And where I've differentiated a bit is I don't do as much anymore, because now I only do it with founders that I feel really have the grit. I always thought if you can motivate someone enough, you can get them to do anything, right? Like, and I would do that. I'd get them all. I'm really getting good at being people pumped. I'm a great wingman, right? And like, and I was, and they get excited for like a week, and then they just drop off again. And what I realized is just like you can't lead a horse to water. And so I've gotten really good at being like, look, I'm not going to force you. You don't want my help? That's up to you, right? But I've got a lot of resources. You know, I know. You know, I've talked with Andreessen and Sequoia, and I've met, you know, people at tons of retailers and tech companies, and like I know CEOs and CMOs, CFOs. Like, I will open up my network to you, and I will help you in every way possible. Like, I have this guy, he's a CDO, he's very well connected in the sports space, very well connected. And we were talking to, I was talking to Adriana last night. She's working on a sports startup, and she's like, I'm talking to this guy. Come to find out, this guy I know also knows this guy, and I was like, I think you'd be a great advisor for. I think you should really do talent insurance. So now I'm going to make that introduction. You know, he invests in other companies, and like, if I feel like a founder is uniquely positioned to be successful, I very rarely would I invest in an idea. I don't believe in investing in ideas. I invest in people, and it sounds very cliche, but like, it's true, because you could put me in like, Jordan, go sell this, and I'd figure it out. Like. And that's what I specialize in, right? Like I you know, I do some consulting for some large companies where I will go and help them set up sales, like set up their ideal customer profile and set up their sales strategy and sales script. And like a lot of people don't know how to do that, both on a large scale or even on a small scale. And so I'm able to make some pretty good money from doing that. And what's nice about it too is that it turns into lead generation for KissPay for the agency side, and which is great, and because then I get in, do that, and then they can see it's not just me that's good at my job. I have a whole team and network of people that are absolutely phenomenal, and people like we're in several, I would call enterprise companies, and all of them when they meet the folks are just always like, wow, and I'm completely hands off with it, right? And so I think it's important that to any especially early stage founders is don't be afraid to fire people.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to fire people. It's a very hard thing to learn, but if you feel like they're just like wasting your time, be like, look, I just don't think it's a good fit. And for everyone listening, go, if you have not read it, go read the Netflix culture book. It's awesome. It is awesome. It is like ruthless, but it's fair. And they put this thing, they say like, we're not a family, we're a team. And sometimes when your team evolves, you're just not a good fit anymore. And it's I would highly, highly recommend. I think there's two companies that I always wanted to work for. The first one is Google. They've got like a million beta projects that they sunset, but I think it's so cool that they experiment so much. I think Google is the one company, and I actually had an in there. I actually had a referral to go in and start doing interviews, and then I got funded for KissPay. That's what happened there.
This is my dream.
Yeah, but I think Google is like one of the coolest companies in the world. They're awesome. And I just think finding a company like that that's willing to go out there and like do things like that and experiment so much is so cool. And the second one is Netflix, because not really because of, and they actually had I saw like 6 months ago, they had like a payments position open. I was like, should I apply for that? That's not, I got other things I got to do. I can't do 2 jobs and it's not gonna work out. But I was like, oh, that'd be so cool, because I really want to experience, like, I've always tried to instill high performance culture in my team, and I think that being able to experience something like that would be just awesome. And like, I think as I've gotten further in my career, and why I've gotten more involved with like UNM and now NMSU is like, I think I wanted, like, I always said like my retirement job was to be either a DECA teacher or a business professor. So I'm like, hey, maybe like being a guest lecturer, whatever in a business. Like, I think that would be really fun. Because I think, Carlos, you and I were talking about earlier, right? Was like this there's this weird disconnect that I'm seeing, and I saw it at UNM and MSU. I saw it at UNT where I got my master's, and the couple of different colleges I've been involved in. There's this passion and want to get students to do things. And I also volunteer at a high school for one of their business classes. But there's this like, they're trying to force a square peg through a round hole and trying to get students excited. But when they find those really good students that really want to try, whether they're successful or not is irrelevant. But find those students that really want to put the work in and be successful. It's like, if I can just help that from a sales aspect, how do you identify your ideal customer profile? What are the attributes that those students you find that are really successful or hardworking? What are those like innate traits that you can focus in on and use that to have better targeting to bring those students in? Because I don't think, and I was saying it yesterday, it was like more students need to be taking advantage of the programs,
the resources.
Because we didn't really have this in college. I lied. There's a UNM, and I feel terrible for remembering his name. And I heard when he died, I was like, I kind of teared up a bit. He was one of the most influential professors. He was a weird guy, but he ran this class where you got $1,500 to start a real business, and I think that was the most eye-opening class I'd ever taken. Mr. Benavides is really great as well. He taught marketing. Dimitri Kaplianos, who now runs the sales program, I had him in college. He was also phenomenal. Close your ears. UNM has great business professors. Go Aggies.
So does NMSU. So does NMSU.
Yeah. My mom went to NMSU, and my dad went to UNM, so it was always like that, my mom was giving me a hard time going down there. Coming down here, and it was like, my dad was giving me a hard time. And no, but seriously, like NMSU and UNM both have, seriously, like, they produce amazing business students. I know a ton of students that are doing crazy well coming out of these colleges, and I meet them all the time. It's crazy how small the world is. And I think if we can find a way to funnel more of those students away from being like, I don't know, being, English majors or any of the other majors, I think if they went into my wife always says, she had a biology and a criminology degree. And she always says, biology is way harder than a business degree. I saw that homework. I ain't going to do that. I think it's like, if we can find ways to help attract students to the program it'll give a bigger target audience for these really specific and nuanced programs to be successful. Because at the end of the day, I want to see my goal, like my next big startup that I do or business or whatever I do next, I want to open it in New Mexico. Like I really, really do. Like I want to, because the kids don't have a pathway. They have to leave the state most of the time to get that experience. And I see that same problem in Pakistan. And it's like, you see the detriments of that.
Yes.
And like people want to come back. People want to be here. It's like, but their hands are forced. And I personally think that like sales is a great way to do it because sales is a remote job. Actually, I know one guy, Marcos. He worked in some similar industries. He actually was working with a company called Skyflow now, which is in the payment space. And he moved back to New Mexico.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, that's awesome. Making a good salary. He's gotten his experience out there. And I feel like NMSU has a great like agricultural program.
Yes.
So we know that NMSU can create good programs and create good students because I've seen it. It's more so like, how do we bring in something other? It was kind of interesting. We're talking like we're both marketing students. I'm like, well, what do you guys want to do with marketing? Like, I want to do like kind of general marketing stuff. And you and I discussed earlier of like growth marketing, right? Which is a huge field. And we talking like you like looking at the numbers like stats. I'm like, you'd be great in product even, right? Product is really more of it's kind of a mix between like tech and business development. But I think if we can find a way to do that, I think sales is one of those opportunities because a lot of New Mexicans have that grindy mentality of wanting to prove themselves. I think there's a lot of opportunity for these programs to do really well. And I'm very excited. Like I was telling everyone that I was like, yeah, I'm doing this thing at NMSU and like it's funny. I got messages when I posted on LinkedIn the other day. I had a ton of messages like, hey man, why didn't you tell me? I totally would love to go with you. And like, yeah, this is so cool. Yeah. And like some of my consulting clients from three different clients. Hey, I saw this. Hey, I used to live in New Mexico, or like my aunt went to NMSU, and like I think this is so cool. So like people are excited about it, right? Yeah. Like these random, like I got people mad because I didn't invite them. And I was like, well, I'm sorry, I didn't know you'd want to go. Like, so I think there's a lot of want out there, and I think I just think it's so. I love New Mexico.
I think it's awesome that a lot of people come out of New Mexico want to come back and with their experience and just kind of help people in that field growing. They want to grow it. They want to be the first ones. But I mean, personally, it's nice to meet other people who've come from New Mexico, such as yourself, and to come back to help us out. And tell us your guys' experiences. I guess a question I have for you has to do with marketing and the industry itself. We see things such as like AI and things coming in. I'm kind of curious, what are your viewpoints on kind of like the future of the marketing industry because of AI kind of coming in and possibly taking a lot of things out? Do you think can we benefit from that? What are your perspectives on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting. You always see these kind of like hypes, right? Which is like blockchain was a hype, but blockchain, by the way, has legitimate uses. Yes. So I mean, what we're going to see, we're already seeing it. There's a big bubble that's being built in AI because really half these things are just Chat GPT wrappers, and like we're going to see a big fall. Get ready for it. It'll take a year or two, but it'll pop eventually. But AI is here, and it's real, and it's here to stay. I think as a marketing profession, and I'm not a marketing person. It's funny because sales and marketing always have like this headbutt, and you'll see there's a lot of really good like TikToks and like YouTube videos like comedy around it. It's really funny. But I think when you look at AI, it's a lot of people use it as like content generation, right? Like it's like, hey, make me like a good blog post to do this. I think we've already started to see it where Google and some of the other browsers are starting to remove the SEO benefits from AI-generated content. So I think there's going to be a lot of human factor, and there's even things like Descript where you can make your own podcast, which I play with all the time. There's tons of video editing. It's here to stay, and you need to use it, and I use it every day. I still can't get my wife on board to use ChatGPT. I don't know why, but like, I mean, I use it every day for everything because it used to be when I was really young. I remember when my parents bought encyclopedias, they were so excited. Like, why would you want this? When you use something, you pull out this big book and you just like look it up. And I'm like, all right, cool. Flip through the pages, right? And then I grew up, when I was young, we got dial-up high-speed internet, and because my parents owned a business, we had access to high-speed internet before consumers did. And so it was like, I can Google the information or, Yahoo or Ask Jeeves or,
Dial it up,
you know,
yeah.
right? I don't. You might be a bit too young at the AOL discs,
Yes,
you know. But yeah, we you know, and so you'd have to go find the information, read it, try to decipher, and you know, and then implement it. But now you have it at your fingertips. You can just ask,
Yeah.
right? So I think as a marketer, I think it's important to, rather than, and I still believe for sales content, I see AI tools like for sales emails. I don't think it's a good approach. They still haven't nailed it yet, but I think you should treat it as more of a conversation piece, right? It's like, hey, I sell this. I'm trying to market this demographic. What are your recommendations on how I should approach this? And I was like, yeah, blah, 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 blah. And you say, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more about this. So treating it, and this is more universal than just to marketing, but treat it as a way to have a conversation and figure out on your own. Because I think I think the human element is going to become more and more important, especially for remote workers. I've been remote since like 2016. I love remote work. I hate driving. I don't like wearing pants, so I ain't going to an office.
Spend more time with your family,
right?
of course. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, it's a lot of drive time. Like just getting ready and driving to the office, sitting in traffic, coming back. Like you save an hour for like, you know. But I think, you know, when you do go to conferences, I enjoy it because I get to go see. And that was the cool thing about sales before COVID. Even I get to go see people at conferences. Like I have a meeting I may be going up to for a client in a few weeks, and I love those in-person meetings. They're very valuable. You get a lot done. But I think it's, as a marketer, focusing on how do you generate that human connection more effectively? And how do you become more focused on when you bring people together, they're of the same caliber and the same mindset. And I think that's where marketing come into play. And from the content side, I think working around, you know, AI, you know, editing, there'd be videos or audio, and to accelerate, instead of something that you just take 8 hours, you can get done in one, right? That's where it's valuable. And I mentioned earlier, if I was a college student all over again, I would have got to learn how to manage Salesforce, manage Figma, all these awesome tools, and I'd make, you know, as I mentioned earlier, if you know the basics and you do a decent job, you can charge $40-$60 an hour, right? It's way better than working, better working at a restaurant, right? No offense to restaurants, just, you know, it's an economics thing. But yeah, I think I think AI is, you should think of AI as less than a content generation tool and more of a conversation tool and a tool to make your job go faster.
Encyclopedia, perhaps.
Exactly. That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a lot changing, and it's good to hear your take because you do work in the tech side of it with Fintech and everything. And so, you know, especially for young marketers, to get that perspective of how to navigate the changing in that environment. But more specifically, like we're kind of running out of time, but I do just want to. I know it because we have learned so much just from this last 45 minutes, 30 minutes, and yesterday with the talk, we learned so much. And I just want to ask you one last thing of if you have any final thoughts, any last business advice that you maybe can give to young entrepreneurs that are starting out, tips.
Yeah, don't go after like the TikTok, Instagram influencers. Like, oh, I'm so successful, and like there's a lot of everything you see on social media, TV content is all fake. And when I say, I don't mean like legitimately fake. Like, it's all edited, right? And they don't show you like the downside. I think don't believe that hype. Don't go for the get rich. It sounds super stereotypical. Schemes, like really try to solve a problem. And I think, sorry, Carlos, about this is like, don't try to solve a consumer problem. I think a lot of students come because it's easy. It's easier for them to find it relevant. Say, oh, I want to build this app to solve my current problem. Try to solve a business's problem first. If you can do that before you graduate, I think it'll give you a big leg up because a lot of the companies out there are B2B sales, not D2C sales. And that's a whole other world people don't realize. And you're going to fail a lot. I've failed many times before I had any sort of success. So like it's most of the time it's not as rosy as people think. So just keep grinding away, and like who cares if you fail? Like no one's gonna remember it anyways after the next 5 minutes. Just get up, keep going. And if you can, if you're listening to this from outside of New Mexico, hopefully you come back one day. I hope to as well, and try to contribute to progressing the state. So thanks for having me. This is
Of course.
Yeah.
awesome.
Thank you for coming down.
Absolutely. Thank you.
From Dallas, all the way from Dallas. Thank you for coming down. I know you're in Albuquerque visiting family there, so thank you for taking your time out just to come down here to, especially Las Cruces. You're up in Albuquerque a lot, but every once in a while come down to the other city in New Mexico.
Yeah. The other city, yeah.
And it's also just really good to hear somebody on the podcast that has worked as a CEO or a co-founder, a CEO, executive chairman now, and just hear what it's like to get through that and what you've learned, because we don't hear from that too often. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, always glad to be back. I think y'all are doing great. The fact that as students y'all are getting yourself out there like this is phenomenal. So keep up the good work.
Yeah.
Throwing ourselves out there,
Yeah, thank you so much. And we hope that this inspires everybody to be bold and shape their future. Oh, hey, fancy seeing you here. Hope you make it to our next episode.